Okay, so this is great. This is a good one. Here we go. Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name's Crystal, Crystal's Bookish Life, and I'm going to talk about 5 of my most recent favorite 5-star reads. So the first one I want to talk about is The Silent Waters by Brittainy C. Cherry. This is an adult romance, and it is part of the Element series. There are 4 books in the series. It's amazing. Each one of them are beautiful and emotional, lovely, wonderful romances. They're all very, they can be sad, like they deal with a lot of real life issues, and the characters have some trauma that they have to go through, and it really is a story about overcoming hard things in your life, or things that maybe you've been dealt that you didn't think you would ever have to deal with. Like, it specifically talks a lot about grief and abuse and drugs from family members or loved ones, and it's just, I think the thing that I like the most about them, other than how tender the romance is how much it talks about how humans are able to overcome some really horrible things in their life. And I honestly usually don't go for heavy topics like that. I prefer my romances to be happier, lighter, romantic comedy types. But these books just spoke to me, and I just absolutely adored them. So this one in specific, The Silent Waters, is book 3 in the series. They're a series of 4, but you can read them individually. They don't have to be read in order. This one is about Brooks and Maggie, and the thing I like specifically about a lot of Brittainy's books is that they start out when the characters are kids or teens, and you get to kind of see their relationship kind of start there, and then something happens. Usually they get separated and then they come back together later in life, and it's just beautiful and hopeful, and I just loved it. There's a specific scene towards the end of this book that put it at 5 stars for me, and it was almost at the very end. It was almost made me cry. Just so swoony. They're just beautiful. So if you haven't tried that series, highly recommend them. I've read all 4 of them. That one is my favorite one. And the next book is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I finally read this and absolutely loved it. I read it in about 2 days, and it's a thick book. It's almost 500 pages, I think. Yeah. I could not put it down. It's a YA fantasy. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's very popular, especially on BookTube when it came out. But when I want a YA fantasy, this is what I want. This is my type of YA fantasy that I just absolutely love. I loved the different aspects of the Beauty and the Beast retelling. I loved the characters. I loved our heroine, who was very strong and very capable. I liked the disability rep in it. I loved the love interest. I loved the side characters. I thought it was just absolutely perfect. I loved it. One of my favorites that I've read in a long time in YA fantasy. And the next one that I picked this book up because Chandler Ainsley did a video about, I think it was like BuzzFeed's like 27 romances that are going to get you hot and bothered, and this one was the one that, one of the only ones in that list that she said she really, really loved, and it is Edenbrooke. Edenbrooke by Julianne Donaldson. It is a beautiful, beautiful, absolutely swoon-worthy romance. It's a Regency romance. This was my first Regency romance I had ever read. I fell in love with it. I've heard it described as like Pride and Prejudice, but with Mr. Darcy being a little bit more flirtatious and Elizabeth being a little bit less sassy. So I totally, totally loved it. I ate this up. I read it in about a day. It was fabulous. Very, very swoony, very light, very happy. If you want a book that has a great romance that'll make you smile, that's definitely it. The next book I read is very popular on BookTube and Bookstagram right now, and that is Home Before Dark by Riley Sagar. I think I'm saying that right. Probably not. This was my first Riley Sager book that I had ever read, and I loved it. I'd kind of stayed away from his because I can get a little bit scared from thriller and horror, and I had heard that this one was extremely scary and it had a haunted house and supernatural type elements I had heard, and I was a little scared. But I got the audiobook, and I was really glad that I did, because then I could listen to it in the daytime when I was working. So I wouldn't have to read it at night and be scared. Because that's the kind of sissy that I am. I don't like to read scary books in the dark. But this book was so engrossing, so engaging. I was absolutely hooked from the very beginning of this, and I just couldn't put it down. I wanted to listen to it all of the time. I felt like the pacing was perfect. I felt like the characters were interesting. I thought that the mystery was just top notch. I really liked the plot reveals at the end. I liked how it kept you guessing about, is it supernatural? Is it not? I just totally loved it. I'm a huge fan of his books now, and I have 2 of his others. I have Final Girls and Lock Every Door, and I'm super excited to get to those when I'm in a mood to read something creepy, which will probably be for Summerine, because I want to do that readathon. And my last book, and probably my favorite that I have read recently, is The Beauty of Inbreaking by Michele Harper. This book was so beautiful. So this is interesting. I typically don't read books like this. This is a memoir, so it's nonfiction. Michele Harper is an ER doctor. She's a Black woman. And this whole book is just her experiences in the ER, different types of, I guess, cases or patients that come in, their stories. It also has a good sprinkling of her life experiences, which obviously, like, that was really important. But so you get a little bit of background of her history, and then you get her stories as she is a doctor. So each chapter is kind of like an individual story about patients as they come in, and what they were dealing with and how it affected her. And I loved this book so much, because I think that something that 2020 has really opened my eyes to is that it really shows people for who they are. And I think that this book was very, very hopeful about the nature of people's ability to just overcome, and it was just beautiful. She's very good at telling a story and making you feel just like that emotion that she feels in that moment with that patient. I will say there are definitely trigger warnings in this book. I don't have them all, but I would say for sure if the loss of a child is a trigger warning for you, I would probably recommend you stay away from this book, because it does definitely deal with that. It was just so beautiful, and I wanted to read you this one little quote because I loved it, and I think it explains better what I'm talking about, what I loved about this book so much. It's human nature to want to bind ourselves to the parts of life we hold dear, whether those parts are actual people, events, items, or dreams. We want to fasten them to us so they're safe and near us forever. But this type of binding frays and tears until even when we fight the awareness, we're forced to see how illusory the reliance on permanence is. What we have in all its glory is to hug and hold, to caress and learn, to feel and grow, is simply right here and right now. It was just beautiful. I loved it so much. It was a quick read. I think it's less than 300 pages, but it was just an amazing look at humanity and the different situations that people have in their life and how resilient people really are. And I just loved it. I thought it was beautiful. It reminded me a little bit of, I don't know if if any of you have read of James Herriot, the vet, the British vet, I believe. His All Creatures Great and Small, it kind of was like that, where every chapter was a story of an animal that he treated, and it was kind of like just a little, almost like a short story. It was just great. I loved it. Anyway, those are my 5 most recent 5-star reads. I love them so much. Let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought, and also let me know what your most recent 5-star read is below. I'd love to know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.